Singularity, Abomination, and Desolation of Mankind, Section 5, The Mark of Our Generation, The Exponential Explosion of Knowledge. If there is one dynamic that defines our time, one thing that is unique of our generation, that was absent from previous generations, it is the exponential growth of knowledge and technology. In fact, it's what the term technological singularity is based on. The one main factor that can change everything. It is this exponential increase of knowledge that is making that which was impossible or even unimaginable in times past possible today. It was hinted at in Moore's Law. Moore's Law was so named for the Intel co-founder Gordon E. Moore, who described the trend in his 1965 paper, noting that the number of components in an integrated circuit had doubled every year from the invention of the integrated circuit in 1958. Until the time that he wrote the paper, he predicted that the trend would continue for at least 10 years, though his prediction has proved to be uncannily accurate, not only for that time, but it still continues today. But Moore's Law has much wider ramifications than just the exponential increase of computing power. It's the main key to a larger exponential increase of knowledge. A simple explanation of what an exponential increase is would be to use dollar bills. First you have $1, then you begin to add $1 bills in an exponential increasing way. Now you have $2, then 4, then 8, then 16, then 32, etc. On and on. It doesn't take long at that rate to get to unimaginable numbers. This is exactly what's happening to knowledge in our day. The computers, and the knowledge in general, begin to form a symbiotic union, and it led to an explosion of knowledge unlike anything the world has ever known, because the computers keep increasing in power, and new tech is being created using these increasingly powerful computers, making invention and production of technologies even faster and cheaper. And when a new advanced tech is created, that new tech is then used to create an even more advanced tech. Again, faster and cheaper than the last. It goes on and on, exponentially faster and faster. So it's not hard to see how unimaginable things can happen at that rate, just as exponentially increasing dollars reach unimaginable numbers in a short time. Exponential increasing technology is the clockwork behind the achievements we see in our society and the advancements. For example, when computers arrived on the scene, it was not long before they began to develop low-tech games with the new technology. These games were little more than a few digital lines on a screen, but in that day they were the most advanced thing that people had ever seen. Games like Pong and Pac-Man became hugely popular, changing the way a whole generation viewed entertainment. Fast forward a few years, now you have the greatly advanced Nintendo game system in every home in America. Only a few short years more and it's PlayStation. The graphics are now vastly more realistic. A few years more, now you have games that are photorealistic simulations on systems such as PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, which is where we're at today. What could possibly be beyond that? Well, that's the point. Eventually, in an exponential increase, you will reach a singularity, when the advance becomes so huge that it changes everything. I'm not just talking about a big change. I'm talking about what I call a catastrophic change, which is a change so great that it not only completely changes an organism's environment, but it also changes the organism itself. An example of this kind of change is again in video games. If they continue to advance at their present pace, it won't be long before it will be virtual reality and holograms, digital projections that can be touched, then actual realities digitally created. Suddenly you have matrix realities, completely separate from the normal or real world, where people are plugged in and living out their lives in an alternate universe. A digital frontier that is as real to those in it as anything in our world. See, just in this case of video games, the advance can reach a singularity where suddenly they're no longer video games, but a new reality. That's only looking at games. It's hard to imagine the effect this kind of explosion of technological advancement will have on everything else. Such things are not only possible in the near future, but likely to come along at some point. Even our current games would have seemed fantastic to the point of silliness to someone living in the 80s, playing games like Pong or Pac-Man. Not to mention what may be coming in the future. Beyond computer tech increasing, there are many other factors involved in the modern explosion of knowledge, like the ever-increasing size of the internet and people's connection to it. The knowledge of the average person today far exceeds generations of the past, because information about anything can be found out in seconds from anywhere at any time. As the collective knowledge of humanity continues to go on the net, and more people become connected to that info, the knowledge or collective knowledge of humanity is growing exponentially too. Not only the knowledge itself, but the people's awareness of that knowledge, because vastly more knowledge is created daily by people's ready access to any and all knowledge through computers, which people are using at an ever-increasing rate. We're not only talking about technical knowledge, we're also talking about personal knowledge through sites like Facebook and Twitter, MySpace, etc. So someone in China can see what a random person in Texas had for breakfast one minute, then speak to a working, net-based artificial intelligence the next minute, access the latest cutting-edge developments in particle physics, watch a video on how to plant corn, and then finally they can check out the relationship status of every celebrity on Earth, all before sitting down to a nice sushi lunch. We all do these kind of things every day. We don't realize that such a thing is a reality that only our generation has experienced. There has been nothing like this in the history of the world. All of this knowledge is growing every day, heck, every minute, on the net, in us, collectively, individually, exponentially. So our generation, unlike any before, is marked by one thing above all, and that is the increase of knowledge. There is a prophecy in the Bible that speaks of such a time as this. Daniel 12:4. Now, at that time Michael, the great prince who stands guard over the sons of your people, will arise, and there will be a time of distress such as has never occurred since there was a nation until that time. At that time your people, everyone who is found written in the book, will be rescued. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the ground will awake, some to everlasting life, but others to disgrace and everlasting contempt. Those who have insight will shine brightly like the brightness of the firmament. Those who lead many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. But as for you, Daniel, conceal these words and seal up this book until the end of time. Many will go back and forth, and knowledge will increase. In this scripture, God tells Daniel to seal up the vision until the prophecy would be fulfilled in the end times, including several things Daniel was not allowed to write down at all. I believe there is a synergy between the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation, which also speaks of mysterious things concerning the end of the world, including, again, some things the writer was not allowed to record in the book. I think these prophecies will only be fully understood by the people of the future time that they were meant for. So when that time comes, the hidden things will be revealed, and to those who have insight. But in Daniel, the book of Daniel, God gave clues so that we could recognize that time. 2 keys that would be the hallmark of that generation. The first key is many will go back and forth. The second key is knowledge will increase. And when these two conditions were met, the people of that time would know that they were living in the last days, and that the understanding of these prophecies was being unlocked. I believe the term, many will go back and forth, refers to the modern ability of anyone to go anywhere in the world in a few hours by airplane. And many do travel daily to the other side of the world and back, a reality that could never have been imagined in the history of the world, save for the last few generations. Even more important is this strange reference to knowledge increasing. As I explained, it's just in the last generation that the exponential increase of knowledge has become a major factor in our world. The word used for increase in Daniel's prophecy is rava. It means to greatly increase or to multiply. This is a direct reference to something very specific, an exponential increase in knowledge so profound that a generation will actually be defined by it. This is important because it means this prophecy was meant for our time, the last days. And whatever was sealed up in the prophecy is now being unsealed, or it will be very soon. I think the parts of this and other prophecies were sealed because they concern things that could not have been understood at any time in history other than ours, because certain events and technologies had to exist for them to be fully understood. I believe this passage is hinting to the fact that the biblical prophecies concerning the end times are critically linked with the exponential increase of knowledge, and thereby technology. If you look at this prophecy and most others concerning the end of the world in the Bible through the lens of the technological singularity, the transhuman agenda, and the ideals of the New World Order, the picture the Bible paints of the last days makes a lot of sense. Sadly, it's a connection that many Bible prophecy people have missed. Could it be that the fulfillment of biblical prophecies in Daniel and Revelation concerning the end of days are talking about the technology of our day and that which is coming in the near future? I believe so, especially the tech that could lead up to the singularity, like artificial intelligence, cybernetics, nanotech, and genetics, which might not only be the triggers that set off the prophecies, but might be what many of the prophecies are warning about. And that would mean that the movies and the stories about these things, like Terminator or Matrix, really were warnings. You have to realize, never in the history of man was there such a fast increase in technology. The things in existence today could not have even been conceived by anyone who lived before our time. The Daniel passage is pointing out two of the things that will exist in the last day, things that people of previous generations could never have done. But there are a lot of other things that have changed the world too in our time, and they are like ripples coming out from these two things. Most of them seem to have made the world more of a one world and a one people rather than promoting the separateness of nations and the people of the past. Today, language is no longer a barrier, which is quite significant since it was God himself who put the language barrier there in the first place, and he did it to stop men from making the one world order, as they were doing at the Tower of Babel. The fact that this is happening in our generation itself is important. Distance isn't really a barrier anymore either. Nearly anyone, anywhere in the world can be contacted almost any time through a variety of high-tech ways. Or you could be on one end of the globe and be standing in front of a person on the other side of the globe in a matter of hours by taking an airplane. If you don't want to travel physically, you can just send your image digitally, attending a meeting anywhere in the world without ever leaving your office through new technologies like telepresence, which at this point is only 2D versions of people on a life-size TV screen. But still, it is amazing how real this tech is. The next best thing to actually being there, as they say. Soon it will be fully 3D interactive holograms of people sent digitally anywhere in the world, like we saw in the Star Wars movies. Think about it. In the 80s, the tech in existence today could not have even been imagined. Heck, we barely had computers at the time. Now in just 30 years, we have world-changing tech far beyond anything anyone could have ever foreseen. Consider the difference between the low-tech 80s and now. Today's tech makes the 80s look like the Stone Age. Just as we will soon be looking back at 2012 like it was the Stone Age. To the people of tomorrow, our current tech will look even more archaic than the 80s looks to us. And it won't take nearly as long to get there either. Now it will probably take less than half of the time to get to the same or a higher level of innovation as it did between 1980 and 2012. That, coupled with where the tech innovators actually want to take the technology in the near future, it's quite terrifying prospect. Artificial intelligent computers, cybernetic humans, genetically altered people and animals, etc. It's only a matter of time before it all happens, and according to many computer scientists and tech innovators, it will be here much faster than anyone would believe. One of the top futurists and writers on the subject of the Singularity, Ray Kurzweil, said in a lecture speaking about the exponential increase in technology, "It's not that we will experience 100 years of progress in the 21st century. Rather, we will witness on the order of 20,000 years of progress. That is, at today's rate of progress." One of the main organizations in AI research and development is the Singularity Institute. The entire organization is focused on preparing for and even bringing about the technological singularity. Listen to some of the staff talk on the Institute's videos is indicative of what most people involved in the field of AI research and development believe. Here is a summary of what they said. Artificial intelligence is already in use and will continue to be improved by people. At some point, we will achieve an AI that is self-aware and able to improve on itself, which will touch off the technological singularity. From that point, it will be a very short time before AI itself becomes more intelligent than humans, i.e., a superintelligence. And this is the real goal, because a super-intelligent computer could help humanity solve all their problems. See, ultimately, what all the proponents for AI want is to build a god. And this is nothing new. In ancient times, it was common practice for men to build idols to worship, because we were created, after all, for fellowship with God. Mankind has an innate need to worship, and if man does not know the real God, he will worship false gods, or make his own gods to worship. In the modern world, most gods that people worship fall into three categories. They are gods of self, gods of nature, and gods of science. For example, a machine god would be a god of science. So this quest to build AI gods is the same as lost men have doing since the beginning. This quest to build living machines, though, is like Pandora's box. Once the door is opened, there will be no closing it. And if these machine gods are created, and they will be, it will only be a matter of time, they will be abominations, and they will bring about the desolation of the human race.